Alrighty, greetings, nerdlings. Happy Monday, everybody. Woo. This video is for everybody who hates Mondays and can't wait until vacation time. Because yes, it is upon us. Vacation season, time to plan, time to go over where you want to go. But before we get to talking about that, today's weird holiday of the day is Earth Day. The day where we consider taking a little bit better care of our planet and all of its beauteous wonder. Speaking of beauteous wonder, fun fact for today is the Hobbiton movie set is now a tourist attraction, in case you don't know, down in New Zealand. And you can visit sets like Hobbiton, and the Green Dragon is actually a restaurant where you can eat and drink. Also, you can visit Bag End. You cannot tour inside Bag End, it's just the facade. But, little piece of trivia. Pretty sure you guys have seen this hanging up above my head somewhere. This is one of my treasured possessions in my house. This little guy right here is actually a leaf from the tree at Bag End. And cool story about that is, if you visit the Hobbiton movie set, which my lovely Alaskan parents, Gary and Sandy, sent this to me, as well as the key to Erebor. So yes, I own a piece of Bag End. The tree that was behind Bag End was a real tree at one time, but between filming the Lord of the Rings trilogy and filming of The Hobbit, the tree actually was destroyed. So the director, Peter Jackson, commissioned a replica be built out of steel and hand-painted silk leaves. 376,000 of these were shipped over from Taiwan and hand sewn onto the tree at Bag End. Well, when you tour the Hobbit movie set, the only thing that you can take off of the set without paying for it is one of these leaves if they happen to fall off the tree and land on the ground. So if you ever visit New Zealand, I highly suggest going to the Hobbiton movie set and seeing if you get lucky, because not idly do the leaves of Lothlorien fall. You might just land yourself a piece. And speaking of movie sets, our nerd news of the day is HBO execs recently announced that they are going to be turning one of their studios in Northern Ireland into a 110,000 square foot tourist experience where you can actually it'll feature interactive exhibits such as visiting the sets, seeing costumes and weapons and other props. It's slating for a next year opening. So if you ever want to travel to Northern Ireland, the studio is in Bainbridge, Ireland, which is 25 miles away from Belfast. So if you're ever in the area next year, keep that in mind. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, school is almost over for our kiddos, and for parents looking for vacation spots for this summer, I have a list of top 5 places in the U.S. where you can take your little nerdlets, like I can mine, and enjoy geeking out over some really cool stuff. Now, of course, my number 1 pick, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Orlando, Florida. It's on my bucket list to do before I die. The Harry Potter Wizarding World is located at Universal Studios, and you can totally become a wizarder, which you can shop at Diagon Alley, you can get a wand at Ollivander's, you can even enjoy a nice glass of buckbeer. I know some people on my Facebook have actually been there, and I'm so jealous. I'm looking at you, Sky and Prescott. I'm so super jealous. My number 2 pick is the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. The Smithsonian is actually broken up into several separate museums. And the one that I'm most excited to see is the National Museum of American History, because they actually have several exhibits. You can go see a pair of the Ruby Red Slippers from The Wizard of Oz. And if you're a geek like me, you definitely want to see the R2-D2 and C-3PO life-size replicas that were used in Return of the Jedi. And that's just one of many, many things that you can see while at the Natural Museum of American History. Number 3 is NASA. The Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. They actually do tours, and you can even go through and have an astronaut training experience where they, test you in G-force and teach you all the things that the astronauts go through during training. So I thought that was really super interesting. I didn't even know they did tours like that until I was doing research for today's video. And I was like super excited because I was like, that would be so cool to know what it's like to be an astronaut in space. My number 4 pick is the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, Washington. They feature a sci-fi Hall of Fame and includes things like Luke's severed hand from Empire Strikes Back, the Staff of Ra headpiece from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which my husband is a huge super fan of. He loves Indiana Jones. And you can also see things like the Right Hand of Doom from Hellboy, which they just recently came out. They're coming out with a remake of that as well. My number 5 pick is the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, New York. They have a permanent Jim Henson exhibit with 300 objects from movies such as The Dark Crystal and The Labyrinth. They actually have, and of the 300 items they have in the exhibit, 47 of them are actually puppets. So you can go see Kermit the Frog, and you can go see a real size Skeksis from Dark Crystal. And I thought that was super interesting because I am obsessed with Jim Henson. I love all of his work. I remember watching Fraggle Rock when I was a kid. Excuse me. Labyrinth is another one of my all-time favorite movies. It's got to be in my top 10. I mean, David Bowie, hello. Dance, magic, dance. Yes. I know vacationing with kids can be tough. You always have to make sure to plan things that are going to hold their interest. And of course, traveling in any mode of transportation with children is an adventure in and of itself. I know that the times I've traveled with my daughter, keeping her entertained was definitely a challenge. Some tips that I have for keeping your kiddo amused: make sure to pack things that they can do that are pretty self-contained. I know that one of the things that I bought her for traveling was a magnetic checkerboard that comes in like a little bitty, like a little case, and all the pieces are magnetic, and the board of it is magnetic to where your pieces won't fly off everywhere. Of course, this is for slightly older children. When she was younger, I would always make sure that she had like a coloring book and some crayons, something that's going to wash off. We don't want to damage upholstery or, airline seats or anything. Books was another good thing that helped her. depending on your children's age. Especially on long flights, you definitely want to make sure that they have things that are going to keep their attention. In this day and age, use of technology, iPads, personal handheld gaming systems, tablets, that sort of thing, of course, would definitely work. Always have them preloaded with some of your kids' favorites, things that they will sit still through. My daughter preferred Disney movies, so at the time it was all about Disney. Now we just kind of jam out in the car. Now that she's older, she's a teenager now, so we'll jam out in the car, or if we're on an airplane, she's got her own iPod that's got, movies that she'll like and music that she can listen to. She usually takes a book in her carry-on bag, so she has something to read. Another good tip for when you get to your destination, always make sure that you have an itinerary planned out with things for the kiddos, favorite hot spots you want to hit, any souvenirs, any food stands. Make sure you're budgeted properly. I always find that when you're planning out longer trips, to make sure that you have a list of things to go through. That way, 1, you can plan your budget. 2, you can make sure that there's something for everybody. And 3, make sure your kids have the most fun possible without losing your mind. Other places that you can always look up things if you don't have that big of a budget for vacations. You can always go online and look up things that are local to you, things that you might not have known even existed. Like, for instance, we live in Arkansas, and down in Murfreesboro, towards the southern part of Arkansas, there's actually a diamond mine there. If your kid loves to dig in the dirt or dreams of being an archaeologist, that would be a perfect thing for you to do. They also have a water park nearby. So if you guys wanted to go dig in the dirt for a while and then, get cleaned up and go there, the costs for those are pretty cheap. Another thing is local museums, local parks, things that might not even cost you anything to get into. Plenty of, state parks, places that have visitor centers that might have good, learning experiences. Even if it's just taking your kids to the local park. During the summer, keeping kids entertained is really hard. And of course, as parents, we really want to do big things with them, but can't always afford it. So get creative. Just get creative. Pack up a lunch and just go for a drive. Pick a final destination and just take a drive. Take the long way around and see the scenery, and usually we'd take a long drive to a lake or something of that sort. That way when we get there, we can have lunch, we can go swimming, or just play in the sand. You don't have to spend major bucks to go on a vacation. And every state has things that can be interesting and fun and a learning experience all at the same time. That way your kids' brains don't get the summer sluggish thing going on. Because we know that during the summer, kids don't want to think about any kind of learning. That's why it's important to make sure that things that you take them to are also fun. Discovery museums are a good place to go. Local water parks, things of that nature. What kind of places do you like? What kind of places are you looking at to go on vacation to? Let me know down in the comments. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to hit the notification bell. I noticed that some of you had asked about that. Facebook Live does have a notification bell to where you can get all of the times I post anything or when I go live. That way you don't miss it. YouTube, also make sure to hit the subscribe bell. That way you get all the notifications there as well. As always, guys, I love you. Stay nerdy. I'll see you tomorrow.